wanted to share a story with you about the moment or the day, I guess, that I realized that I was dealing with an actual narcissist, or at the very least, a very emotionally abusive human. So basically, we had planned a trip to Erie with um, him and his brother and his brother's girlfriend because it was his brother's birthday and they wanted to go to the casino. I had never met his brother, um, so I was a little anxious about all of it anyway because I really had only been seeing him for a couple of weeks at this point, and I'm very awkward in social situations, especially when I don't know people. So I agreed to go, um, but the day that we were leaving, I hadn't really heard anything from him, and I thought that was really odd. Um, I had just switched over my phone to a new phone that I had received that day, but what I didn't realize was that somewhere in the transfer process, um, the SIM card messed up, and for some weird reason, I was not receiving specific text messages. His were one of them, and he had been trying to contact me. I did not realize that. So at some point during the day, I messaged him on Facebook and I just asked him um, what was going on when we were leaving and everything like that because I hadn't heard from him. And apparently, he wasn't receiving my messages either because I had definitely tried to contact him via text as well. Um, and he got real weird with me and he wanted to know like if I still planned on going or whatever. And I said, well, yeah, obviously I still plan on going. This has been a plan. So I ended up having to pick him up because he didn't have a license, which should have been my first red flag. But hey, I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. But anyways, so on the way there, did not say much of anything to me. It was a very awkward trip over. I kept asking him what was wrong because we had stayed in pretty constant communication, basically always, from the time I had met him. And he was just being awkwardly quiet. And he wouldn't really tell me what was wrong. He kept saying he was tired, but he didn't seem tired to me. It was just a real awkward silence. So we get there. I meet his brother's girlfriend, which was very awkward for me because, like I said, I'm not good with that kind of thing. So I was already a little anxious. And then we pretty much went, once we got settled in, straight to the casino, where once we arrived, he began drinking very heavily, which I'm not a drinker. So it was, again, awkward for me. Um, so as soon as he started drinking, it didn't take him long um, to become completely intoxicated because he was drinking very heavily and he was just being a jerk. And I mean, there's really no nice way to put it. He was just being straight up mean to me for absolutely no reason at all. So that went on for the night. It was really awkward. I didn't know how to respond to any of it because, I mean, he'd basically been kind of that way since we had left, and I had no idea what I had done wrong. I just assumed it was something I did wrong because, I mean, I don't know that it just nothing was making sense. Nothing was adding up. So as the night went on, he got meaner and meaner, and we went to Applebee's where he proceeded to drink more, and then we went back to his brother's hotel room where he drank even more. And by the time we got back to the hotel room we were staying at, he was just straight up raging asshole. There's no nice way to put it. He was just straight up raging. And he was screaming at me and throwing things at me and just being totally awful and saying horrible things to me. He ripped his shirt off in anger. That's where we were at. And I had no idea what to do because I'd never witnessed behavior like this. And I called his brother, who had given me his number earlier when we were having difficulties communicating via my phone because I was having so much trouble with it. And I said to him, like, your brother's having a meltdown over here. What should I do? And he wouldn't come over and check on him. So I ended up going over there where he basically proceeded to tell me that he'd never acted like this before and he didn't understand what was happening, which was no comfort to me whatsoever because at that point I'm thinking, like, what did I do to provoke him? Which I hadn't done anything, but I didn't know at the time. So I end up going back over, um, where he proceeded to verbally accost me for the remainder of the night until he started violently vomiting and eventually passing out in his own vomit. It was the most traumatizing night of my entire life. And I fell asleep that night with absolutely no covers, because when I say he was like violently vomiting, I mean he threw up all over everything: the bed, the sheets, blankets, the toilet, the sink, everything. There was there was vomit everywhere. And so I cuddled up in a little corner on the bed that was clean and with no covers or anything, and I just cried myself to sleep because it was like 2 a.m. and I didn't want to drive home from Erie. So I woke up the next day and couldn't wake him up because he was passed out drunk. And when he finally did get up, he was still angry at me for whatever reason. And he was too sick to really do anything. So I basically cleaned up the entire room and all of his vomit all by myself. It was awful. And then after we left, he proceeded to tell me that the reason that he was so mad at me and why he had acted the way he had was because he assumed that since I wasn't answering my phone when my phone was being messed up, that I was hanging out with my ex-husband. I don't know why that would have ever been his assumption. Um, it really is irrelevant as to whatever, but that's why he verbally accosted me all night. That's why he treated me like shit. That's why he got so drunk and violently threw up everywhere, like it was somehow my fault. That was what he was trying to tell me. And even after all of this, and after the horrible weekend we had, and just everything that had occurred, for some reason, I stayed. And that's a me problem. And I take full responsibility for that now. But at the time, I really don't know why I chose to go that path. I guess something in me blamed myself for some reason for whatever had occurred, because up until that point, he had never been mean or violent or anything like that towards me. Um, there had been a couple of scenarios where he had responded really, really reactively, I guess, to things that had happened, or just I didn't like the way he spoke to me and things like that. But I mean, in hindsight, those would have been like now, knowing what I know now, that would have been enough for me to be like, okay, peace out. But back then, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, and I just was giving him the benefit of the doubt for whatever reason because I decided I liked him, which again, still don't have any excuse for that. But um yeah, that's my story of when I first realized what I was dealing with and chose to stay anyway. Um, Pat myself on the back for that decision, but here we are. Um, I'm hoping that in sharing these stories, I'm not only helping other people to know that they're not alone, but also it's kind of healing for me to be able to share some of what happened, because it's been something I haven't really done a lot of talking about at all because it's so traumatizing. And I plan to share more of my stories just so that I can do that, if only for myself, because I think a lot of people don't realize what I dealt with in the time that he was in my life. And it's why I am how I am today. It's why I shelter myself. It's why I hang out in my house and don't leave. It's why I trust no one. It's why you don't hear from me anymore. Like, I am not the same person that I was prior to the 2 years of dealing with extraordinarily manipulative, just gaslighty, terrible emotional abuse. So, I will definitely share more stories with you soon. If you care, or if you don't, I don't really care. This is my outlet. So, have a wonderful evening. Sorry for putting a damper on your night if it did, but have a good one.